Hey everyone, this is Derek Bros with Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about aliens. Yep, I'm talking about aliens. Well, more specifically, UFOs, hidden technology, and things like that. I'm going to try to keep this video brief because, well, obviously this is a big topic and it could go on for quite some time. But before we get into all that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com and to come down here and subscribe to our email newsletter, which I just sent out a new one the other day. You'll get another new one typically on a Saturday or Sunday, so you can get all of our content straight to your email inbox. So I'm talking specifically about this new documentary here called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. And let me preface this by saying this for those of you who are maybe long-term supporters and viewers and who are like, what is Derek really talking about aliens? And well, I'll have you know this. I've been researching aliens and UFOs and had an interest in this since I was in elementary school, probably since I was 6 or 7 years old. I mean, I've always researched quote-unquote conspiracies, from spontaneous human combustion to the Loch Ness Monster to Bigfoot to UFOs. I started out with weird stuff like that and just knowing that there were secrets in the world, and then, of course, moved to government and things like that later. But my point is, the conscious resistance, the whole goal is to have, expanding knowledge in all different areas. And without a doubt, if you don't think that the government is involved in covering up technology, let's start there, whether or not it's coming from alien technology or let's just say it's hidden military technology or what have you. If you don't think they're hiding that, then you're just kind of ignorant, I guess, or not paying attention. But so I've been interested in this since I was a young kid, and I will say this, that I've seen UFOs 2 different times in my life. Maybe one day I'll tell you guys that story. And so I've always had an interest in this, and this has never gone away since I've grown up. And one of my favorite YouTube channels, some of you may have heard of, is called Secure Team 10. I follow them fairly regularly, and it's something that's entertaining to me. I will say this, with a lot of the UFO history and the research, ufology, as some people call it, it's very difficult to discern what is real, what is fact from fiction. And so typically I take everything in this particular line of research with a grain of salt, because it's true that there are a lot of people coming from government positions coming out to say, hey, they're part of what people refer to as disclosure, and say, hey, I worked on this, or I have evidence of this, or I saw this. And it seems to be kind of building up, and it's been building up. There was even the disclosure conference happening right around September 11, 2001, with many of these people coming forward to speak, involving a man by the name of Stephen Greer, who we'll talk about in a moment. So there's definitely a lot of things that we could point to as far as evidence, not only visual evidence and the just insane amount. Like, really, if you've never heard of Secure Team 10, spend some time on this channel and really just look at the things that he talks about, videos from around the world and things in space. And now we can use NASA and some of the, not that I trust NASA, but some of these agencies, their own cameras, and see whenever they try to hide and cover up things that are seen in the skies and space. So there's more than enough reason for any reasonable objective person to have questions and to say, okay, well, maybe we don't know what's going on, right? And obviously we know governments keep secrets and lie, so it's kind of just a no-brainer that these type of things would be secret from us. Now, again, is this coming from aliens, from another planet, galaxy, solar system? Is this just highly advanced military technology? We know that governments say they can't find the U.S. government says they couldn't find like $21 trillion. I mean, it's way more than that at this point, from the Pentagon and other places, the Treasury Department missing money. And most of this is probably going to what we refer to as black budget special access projects that are hidden from the public, and they can, again, according to their laws, keep it secret from everybody. All the money they take from you via taxation, use it on whatever the heck they want, print money out of thin air, or just put numbers into a computer and then use that to fund these insane programs, most of which are probably going to be used militaristically against other people and parts of the world. So yeah, that's kind of my long-winded explanation of my background on this, what I think. So I take things with a grain of salt. I do believe there are unidentified flying objects out there, obviously, and some of them may be military, some may be others. I've definitely think also the likelihood of life from other places is kind of, yeah, I would say so. Of course, there's going to be life elsewhere. And I think that it's also probable that if some highly advanced civilization exists, they have already visited. And I also, in my line of research, and some of you have seen my interviews with Jim Mars, so you can go back and find those. Also, I used to attend the Contact in the Desert conference. You can find old interviews I did there talking about UFOs. So this is not like a new line of research. I just don't talk about it that often. But basically what I'm getting at here is we can try to look at the evidence that's in front of us, people from government saying, hey, this is what's going on, and videos and testimony from various people. And obviously there's a lot of people trying to discredit any of these folks and say they're crazy, they didn't see that. I mean, there's astronauts that say that they saw craft and things like that. I mean, you just got to do the research. It's not that hard. But one thing that really freaks me out or just kind of makes me hesitant is the idea of disclosure and of what is known or has become known in conspiracy lore as Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam is something you should go check out. Go DuckDuckGo Project Bluebeam and look up the name Sergei Monast, who is a journalist, I believe, who was one of the first people to put this idea out there about some supposed hidden plan by NASA and other space agencies to fake an alien invasion in order to, kind of, I guess, enact their final control on the globe, on the world, and bring the people together. We have that quote from Reagan saying, if we were faced by some threat from beyond our stars, maybe, we would forget our petty problems. So people unite against this alien invasion, and there's all sorts of different, the whole Bluebeam theory includes the idea of using voice-to-skull technology, which now exists, because this idea, I think, was first being promoted in the 80s and the 90s. And now a lot of the technology that described, it exists. For example, voice-to-skull technology, supposedly Project Bluebeam, people who didn't fall for this fake alien invasion would be getting, just made to go crazy or hearing voices until they kill themselves. And, that there would be, this mass invasion and people would come together and be united as one world. And I think there's even a part about all the different people in different parts of the world seeing their particular god in the sky, and in that god, like, kind of turning into one new god that unites everybody. So you have the one world religion, so this gets into the whole new world order thing, which obviously I do believe parts of that, and I think some of the people promoting this might have been coming from a conservative Christian perspective. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I do know that sometimes their perspective is skewed more towards, like, it's turning everybody away from Jesus and from, towards the devil and things like that, which on some level I don't disagree with. My point here is, when I see all this disclosure, when I see these, the channels all over, the big UFO channels and channels pushing Bob Lazar, and this documentary, which I just finished watching, and I'll play you a brief clip, and I see him talking about his story, which his story is incredible. It gives me some hesitance. I'm like, okay, people are calling, you have the Disclosure Project and you have the Full Disclosure Project. Just like any subculture, anarchist movement, libertarian movement, conspiracy movement, truth seeker movement, 9/11 truth movement, chemtrails movement, geoengineering, whatever. There's always drama, there's always divisions, there's always people saying this person's fake, this person's real. And so you have the Disclosure Project, the Full Disclosure Project, everybody calling everybody shills. All I know is that I've never really trusted Stephen Greer. You guys know I don't trust David Wilcock and some of these other people that are out there promoting this stuff. I absolutely believe there probably is a secret space program, and the likelihood that maybe the government is conducting missions out there in space that we have no idea about, it could be pretty high, or at least that they're further advanced than we know. I also do believe that we've had contact with, maybe, starting with Roswell or even earlier, right? There's also the idea that some people put forth that Eisenhower actually made contact with an alien species, and at that point the U.S. government started trading technology for different, for letting, different things, right? There's all these different theories. Like I said, I take everything with a grain of salt. Some of it's based on speculation, some of it's based on people who don't have the best, record, and it's difficult, right? But I just wanted to do this video, I guess, to talk a little bit about this, talk about Bob Lazar. And so you don't know anything about Bob Lazar, check out, you can watch this documentary if you want it. A friend let me access it, and there's plenty of, this interview here probably tells you everything you need to know. It's an hour long, and it's with Secure Team talking about this documentary, but basically talking about Bob Lazar's story. And essentially, in 1989, he came forward giving like a TV interview where his face was dark and you couldn't tell who he was. He was going by the name Dennis, saying that he worked in Area 51 and that he wanted to come forward and talk about how he was helping reverse engineer technologies that couldn't have possibly come from this planet. And eventually he came forward and put himself forward because he said he'd received threats and things like that and wanted to try to protect himself. He's never written books about this, or as far as I know, he hasn't put out, he's not hawking DVDs. Not that there's anything wrong with making money off the things that you do, but people who say, oh, this is just some guy trying to make money. He's never gone on speaking tours and circuits trying to promote hey, here are my exclusive UFO information, charging people a bunch of money. He's just he had a bunch of threats, and he sort of just was under the microscope for a minute. His story did go viral in the 80s and 90s and all around the world. And he said that he, worked at Los Alamos laboratory. He said he went to Caltech and these other places. And then when the journalists try to contact them, those places say they never heard of him. They have no record. And then somebody finds a Los Alamos phone book with him listed in it and other documentation that he actually did work there. And they still claim, no, we have no idea who that is. So there's lots of weird things like that. He also at one point claimed that he did see an alien, on the base where he was working at, which is specifically known as S4, which is supposed to be near Area 51. He was one of the first people talking about what is known as Area 51 now, before it was really confirmed. He also talked about something known as Element 115, which we now call Moscovium, and which was discovered in 2003, I believe. And he talked about it back in the 80s and saying this was what the aliens or whoever developed this technology that the U.S. government had recovered, and that they were reverse engineering, that they had been using this in some way. Currently, the only version that we have in existence that they've been able to partially create is unstable and doesn't last very long. He said they were able to create a stabilized version of it, and I'm just going to play this very brief clip because I don't want to get in trouble for playing a clip from something that they're trying to charge for, but this is just about Element 115.
He knows the story is that you got some Element 115 out of Los Alamos. That's public knowledge. It's something you said a while back. Do you think that what happened had to do with that?
We're not going there.
As you can see, he gets a little uncomfortable talking there and doesn't really want to speak too much about whatever he saw. In the documentary, I think it's a good documentary. You don't necessarily have to pay for it if you don't want to, if that's not your thing. There's probably plenty of other information. Everything that he said is already available, really. He's been giving interviews. But the one thing I do want to say is he claimed that he saw a UFO or an alien in the past, and now in this documentary he goes back and says, no, that didn't happen. And he did go to extreme lengths to prove himself. Like, he did lie detector tests. He was doing hypnosis, and like I said, he never seemed to indicate that he was in it for the money. So his story is definitely the fact that he talked about something. Element 115 described it before it came into existence. He's able to draw, detailed pictures and instructions on how this craft looks like and what he witnessed and whatnot. And he's actually a real scientist. His business is United Nuclear, and apparently during the documentary he was actually raided by the FBI, which I'm not going to say they staged that, but I don't know if it was related necessarily to the documentary, but it is kind of coincidental that it happened while the documentary, they're filming the documentary. I'm sure they realized, wow, that's awesome. That's going to look great in the film. I don't know. Some people think Bob Lazar is full of shit. Some people think he's the real deal. Again, I'll let you guys make up your own mind, but check it out and look into it. I do know that John Lear, these over here at Project Camelot, and I'm not endorsing Project Camelot by any means. I think they do some interesting stuff. Again, take it all with a grain of salt. But this guy who is friends with Bob Lazar is kind of going on here talking about, he was at the premiere of the documentary, which was December 4th, and describes the crowd, but he's basically just talking about how after all this time, Bob admits that he can no longer remember seeing his first alien. He wasn't sure what he had seen. What's more, all he cares about is getting the truth about the technology. The aliens can wait. So it's just interesting. He's, some of parts of his story have changed, and the people who don't want to hear it or don't want to believe it anyways are going to use that as a reason to dismiss it. But I think it's worth your time to look into not only Bob Lazar, but obviously the existence of hidden technology, black budget technology, right? And the big implication, I think, and he's not the first person to say this. People if you've ever seen the Thrive documentary, then that people out there have talked about this technology, and the deeper implication of this technology being hidden from us is this: we're currently still stuck on the oil drip, right? The fossil fuel drip, and using these they're old machines, the way we still operate, using coal and different things like that. When people know, and apparently whether this is coming from alien technology, because there's another possibility I'll discuss in a moment, that this fuel, this energy that they use, this what they consider, I guess, anti-gravity propulsion, according to Bob Lazar, it could change everything in our world. Obviously, it could get rid of the need for fuel vehicles, for oil-based vehicles and petroleum and things like that. It could completely evolutionize our way of living, the way that we power energy. Also, we know about Tesla technology and things like that. I mean, the point here is that not only is the government and military and companies that are helping them develop this covering up technology like this that could revolutionize our world that they'll probably use for weapons of war, but Also, they're keeping it from our ability to use it for electricity, for power, for just everything, right? And that would change everything. Now, the one last thing I want to say is, so the other possibility outside of this being aliens, right, is something else, another area of research that some of you may not know I'm into, but it's definitely worth your time. It's possible that those who are in control, what many refer to as the deep state now, used to refer to as the shadow government of the Illuminati, the ruling class, whatever, the people behind the scenes, the pyramid of power, and the people at the top, they have a couple of great secrets. And one of those includes the secret of our history as a species and where we come from and how long we've been here. And our whole timeline is completely screwed up. And if you've gone down these rabbit holes, you know what I'm talking about. The timeline they give us is not real. The people that they say have built the pyramids and the monoliths and the structures are wrong, and there's a lot more to the story than we know. This is one of the biggest things being kept from us by the pyramid of power. So it's possible that since there have been advanced civilizations in the past with likely technology even beyond ours, that some of these crafts could have been left over from past civilizations, and the people who have throughout history preserved fought to preserve the secrets to themselves and keep it only to the enlightened, only to the illuminated, that they then have held on to this technology, and now some of them within governments are reverse engineering it. That's just another possibility. And by the way, the other big secret of the pyramid of power is the power of our minds, the power of our ability to change the world around us and affect it and make it better without relying on centralized institutions and authoritarian figures. So the answer is always going to be within your own heart and your own mind. So don't wait for the aliens to come fix things. That's my big problem with the UFO community, and of course QAnon. You guys know that just anybody who's out there promoting this idea that somebody's coming to save us, whether it's the white hats within the government, or the deep state insiders, or the aliens, or QAnon, or even Jesus Christ. I mean, whether you're a Christian or not, I think that Christ and your deities probably want you to take your life in your own hands as well, and to not be complacent, and to fight for the life that your creator gave you. And so yeah, that's kind of my rant on that. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think about Bob Lazar? What do you think about S4? What do you think about Element 115 and what he basically, the information he had before it came out? What do you think about Project Bluebeam? And I didn't mention Bill Cooper. He was one of the people promoting that, and we can talk about that a whole nother video. But if you guys are interested in me getting into more of this kind of stuff, UFOs and that whole line of research, let me know, and we'll do more of those videos. For now, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.